Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the very first installment of Tales from the Archives. I'm Grayson from Mortis FM, and with me is an entire ensemble of amazing Star Wars content creators and people that I am lucky to call friends. Can we get them on screen? Perfect. With me is, let's just introduce everybody one at a time. Cole, I pass it on to you.
What's up, everybody? Obviously, I'm Cole, as he just said. Second half of Mortis FM. I'm very excited to be here for our first session of Tales from the Archives.
Hello there. I'm Connor.
And I'm Seth.
And we're beyond the Dune Sea. Also very excited to be here for Tales from the Archives.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Easy listening tunes of Will Diamondfigs. Ready to go over Plagueis, Darth Plagueis on Tales of the Archives.
Did you do an echo?
And I'm Tony from Star Wars Sith. And Will sounded a little sad there, but I'm here to brighten your days up, guys. So we're gonna have a fun stream today.
We're gonna make Will laugh at least 3 times in this thing because he sounds like Eeyore.
Hey, challenge accepted. Won't.
All right, he's gonna now not try to laugh. Yeah. So anybody who is joining us that maybe does know what Tales from the Archives is, we're very happy that you are here. But maybe there's a couple of you that you're just popping in. You're fans of one of us. You're watching on one of our channels, and you're like, "What is this Tales from the Archives things?" Well, let me explain it very briefly. We are basically coming together every month for a book club live stream. And right now we are covering the Legends novel by James Luceno, Darth Plagueis. Tony has it right there. We are covering today the prologue in chapters 1, 2, and 3. So we will get into that in just a second. But you may be wondering, like, oh man, I didn't read any of this or whatever. Like, what do I do? That is okay. Listen, if you want to go back and read the book and you want to pop out now, this session will be available for you to watch later on. But say you did happen to read along with us, we're very happy you did. And maybe you're like, I don't know, I'm not really into the book thing. I want to get into it, but I'm not sure. Well, hey, feel free to use this as an opportunity to kind of sit here, give you a little taste of what it's kind of like reading these Legends novels, especially Darth Plagueis, which is a very heavy-hitting Legends book. And yeah, just use your own judgment. Either way, we are happy that you're here, and we're going to be we have a list of things that we want to talk about, obviously, through the topics of the book, the beginning of the book, but we want to also, above all, make it engaging for you guys. We want to get a discussion going with the community, and I mean, it's all about talking about Star Wars, so that's what we're going to do. Does anybody else have anything else to add before we get into kind of the free-form discussion?
I was just going to say, well said.
Thanks, man. I love you.
We were supposed to read the prologue and 3 chapters. I thought the prologue counted toward 3 chapters.
No, it's okay. No. Are you being serious?
I'm just joking.
Oh,
You're supposed to read only chapter 3. You need to go up and then just...
Yeah, we're going to just choose a random chapter in the book and then try to piece the story together.
Yeah, there we go.
You were supposed to read 3 chapters.
What is that, that viewing?
That's more clear. Gotcha.
What was the viewing of the Star Wars movies? Where it's like you watch it as like you start with like episode 2 and then go to like 4 and then 5 and then like 3. Have you heard of that? It's like
I have heard of it. It's whack.
It's so weird. And there's like a whole.
Yeah, it sounds weird.
That's a whole other thing. But
those are the kind of people that sleep with their socks on.
Okay, when a cold winter's night, sleeping with your socks on is not bad.
Yeah, Will.
Sorry,
Listen,
I live in Florida. Sorry, what are you gonna do? Sorry.
Wait, so Grayson,
when they sleep.
If you do, does that mean that you watch the movies in that order? Because I mean, Will said it, so
wait. Oh no.
Confirmed. Boys, we got him.
Dude, I've been bamboozled. Tony, before I get into kind of the summary of the first couple chapters, let's pull up some comments.
Yeah, so let's catch up with the chat. So Dan the Man was in here before we even started. What's up? Welcome to the stream. We got Andrew in the building. Howdy. Welcome to the stream.
Andrew, you're the man.
Hello there.
Old shipping lines. This is where the fun begins. I like it. I like it.
I need one of those headsets.
Andrew said, great episode today, Beyond the Dune Sea. Yes.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
We got Retney's Holocron in the building, the real life Jedi Archives. What's up,
Yeah.
Retney?
Yeah,
Heck
no
yeah.
kidding.
Mhm.
Tom, what's up, man? So Tom said, I tried to read the first 3 chapters again, ready for tonight, but ended up reading 16 chapters. Such a good book. This is my 4th time reading it. Wow, show off. Welcome, Tom.
I'm impressed, honestly.
Hopefully our pace
Oh,
won't be too slow for you. We'll try to catch
Yeah.
up.
He also sent a 7-month member chat. Appreciate you, Tom. Let's go. He is hyped, ready to go. Appreciate that. Let's see who else we got in here. There's a bunch of this guy spamming the chat. Hey, guys, Diamondfigs had his shoelaces tied together by a big bully, so waiting to finish that.
That's
Okay.
why the stream was late, guys. I apologize.
Totally. It was totally that.
He came up to me and he yelled,
no,
"Why I
yeah.
Yoda?" And then he tied my shoelaces together, and that's why we were late. Sometimes bullies just you got to deal with them. That's
yeah,
it.
man. Leave it to Will
Just
to
really
cause
didn't want
chaos
us to
during
talk
a
about
live
it.
stream.
Oh my goodness.
Brooke, what's up? Decided to finally start reading the Plagueis novel. Anyways, how's everyone doing? I'm good, Brooke. Welcome to the
Doing
stream.
good.
Oh, look, Redney knew it right away. That's called the machete order for
Yes.
the movie.
Yeah, I was about
Oh.
to say that.
Gosh, I had a
Thank
friend in
you.
college who was like obsessed with the machete order. He would like yell at me every time I watched anything outside of the machete order.
I feel like that's like
Wow.
the definition of just like being a hipster is just like, I watch it this
Dude,
way.
this guy was, the memes of when you watch Lord of the Rings and there's the guy who's like waiting.
Yes.
Viggo
Yeah.
Mortensen, he had broke his toe. He was that guy. And he literally did that when we did our marathons for Lord of the
That's-
Rings and for
oh,
Star
man.
Wars. So.
Man.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Thank you, Retney.
Red Star Gaming, what's up? Great book. So far, so good. Yeah. Andrea, what's up? I'm here too. Hi. Hello. Hello there.
Hello, hello.
Alejandro, what's up? Just another fan. What's up? Hello there. Council says Cole.
Is that our official
cool.
dubbing now? We're the council?
Council, what's up? Popping up in Mortis FM's chat. Yes.
Dude, thank you, man.
Lightning
you.
Slug. What's up? I love this guy. Look at his default. It's a slug getting hit by lightning, hence the name.
That is-
Lightning
Oh, I
Slug.
see.
That's super
Oh, it's
epic.
because it's this lightning and then a slug. Got it. Thank you.
So he says, I only know 2 of y'all. Excited to get to know everybody here. Looks like a good crew. Yes. So for you guys watching, the link to everyone's channel is in the description. Be sure to check everybody out. Subscribe to everybody. But I have one question I've been dying to ask you guys.
You ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
It's only a matter of time.
Listen, it might be just the running gag at this point. Even we're going to be doing a book like completely far off, and they're like, no, we already did that.
I've heard a prologue and 3 chapters of it.
That's awesome.
I don't
love
know.
it.
I kind of skimmed through it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much for being so supportive. We hope you kind of enjoyed the discussion. So as we say anything, feel free to please respond and give your thoughts if you did read along or any questions that you may have, because I think a good amount of us have decent kind of I don't know, an array of knowledge, because there's certain things that I was reading in these chapters that I was kind of like, okay, I know what this is, but not entirely. Specifically, I have a question for Seth, because they allude to a lot of. We'll get into it just a second. Let me give you guys the summary of the prologue and chapters 1, 2, and 3 of Darth Plagueis. I'm going to try to make this pretty brief. I expanded upon Seth's summary because there was a few things that I wanted to add on. We open in the prologue with Palpatine killing his master, Plagueis, and subsequently he is basking in the dark side, where he then ponders how his master killed his own. Jump back to 35 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. Darth Plagueis and his master, Darth Tenebris, are investigating the planet of, I pronounce it as Baldimnik. Is it Baldimnik? I don't know. You choose. What is it, Will?
The N you do not pronounce in terms of the audiobook.
It's just
the way it's Baldemic.
Baldimnik.
So there's no, you don't say the N.
Okay. All right. Baldimnik.
And that could be correct or no, but in the audiobook it was Baldemic.
Okay,
Huh.
cool. They are investigating the planet of Baldimic to examine its supply of cortosis. The droid that they're using is probing for the cortosis, but it goes against commands and diagnostics, and it intentionally hits a pocket of gas. As Plagueis and Tenebris escape to their ship, the explosion catches up with them, weakening Tenebris and the structure of the cavern in which their ship is placed. Plagueis uses the opportunity to kill Tenebris with the falling debris, and he claims the role of master. In Tenebris' final moments, he tells Plagueis who provided the probe droid which brought about the explosion. Plagueis finds a way to escape Baldemic via a locally docked ship called the Woebegone. We switch perspectives to the crew of the ship as they depart the planet, who aren't doing so hot on credits. Plagueis stows himself in one of the containers and is discovered by the crew. He peacefully tries to persuade them to take him to Munilist. Munilist? Did I say that right?
Munilist.
Munilist. All right, cool.
Yeah.
The second N in that is also read as silent. They make that a note in the book, which I found very funny. Wow. Okay. Good job. Good job. Well, he says that if they take him to the planet, he'll provide them credits, but ultimately the crew does not indulge his request. The chapter ends with the captain confronting Plagueis on her terms, preparing to draw her blaster on him. That is where the chapter ends. So,
big cliffhanger. We ended on.
I didn't even need to read it.
Yeah.
I should have just waited for you to do that.
Listen, I will go ahead and say the next time around, we will be reading a lot bigger chunk of chapters, I would presume, because we kind of had to we wanted this to also just be an icebreaker for you, hopefully, to get to know all of us if you don't know us already, and also just be like, hey, we're not going to go too far. You can still catch up. You still have time. So yeah, the first question I have when I pull up my notes here in approximately 3 seconds is, what did you guys think of the first few chapters?
I think it's pretty wild that they just spoiled the whole story right in the prologue. I mean, I was like, man, this guy's just the protagonist of our book. He's just laying dead. What in the world? There's no suspense there.
Well, Connor, you should watch this movie called Revenge of the Sith. It's pretty good.
It's on my list. It's on my watch list.
Maybe if you're watching the Machete Order, you haven't got to it yet. But...
Yeah, I know. It's last. I know.
Yeah.
I'm on like the fourth one or something. I don't know.
That's the War Star thing, right? Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. That's one that's got.
You're thinking of Avatar.
Oh, all right. That's the one with Ghost Rider in it, right? That's so cool.
Cole, I'm kicking you off Mortis FM.
All right, guys, have a good one.
But yeah, no, seriously, what did you guys think of the first couple chapters? Like, how intrigued did you guys get?
I thought it was good. I thought it set up because I mean, this is the first time I'm reading this story. I knew virtually nothing from this story. Have you read this before? You read it once?
One time.
Okay, long time ago.
Seth, how could you?
So I thought it set up the character of Plagueis really well. You know, how he's a little bit more conniving. He cares more about, he's looking more about the grand scheme of things, the grand plan and all of that. He's not quite as violent. He's more calculative, which is really interesting.
That's something that I found
sowing a lot of seeds, I think.
I mean, I kind of dig that it just drops you right in. Yeah. It's like, we're not on our way to a mission. No, we're already digging for Kotosis. And we're going to use this to our means. That it's like, that's pretty sick that it's just like, we're in the middle of a mission. Yeah. So always.
They really thrust you kind of like right in the action. Retney, no, quit antagonizing Seth. He likes Han and Dirge. It's okay.
I think it was extremely.
Ow. Can't have an opinion.
Hey, I got roasted for 2 weeks for liking Obi-Wan. So if you,
but I mean,
hey, we're leaving all of that. We're talking about Plagueis, guys.
Yeah. No, well, hey, Reddy brought it up.
I know.
To comment on like what he said about immediately getting into the action, I think it was really interesting how, not only do we start off the book in the prologue of Sidious killing Plagueis, it's, the book immediately reminds you like, this is what it's all about. This is what it's leading towards. But immediately the next chapter, it's paralleled with, Plagueis killing Tenebris, and so I just think that was a really good parallel between the two, just that you can immediately see this is what it's like being a Sith, apprentice killing master, a master to have power and an apprentice to crave it. I think that's a quote directly from the book. And speaking of quotes directly from the book, One thing in general that I noticed as soon as I started reading it was James Luceno, like his writing style is kind of masterful. I love his wordplay,
It's
and
so good, dude.
I think he has very in-depth descriptions about just the world around the characters, but also I love the way that he talks about the Force. I think it's done in a very mystical, almost understandably organic way, that it kind of has a mind of its own and acts on its own accord. And people that use the Force are simply just conduits of that. And so I think that I didn't expect to already like it as much as I do. But it just kind of puts things into a different perspective. So yeah.
Piggybacking off of what you just said, I did think it was really interesting that like these are like the only two Sith Lords, and I felt like that they were both very reserved in the way that they used the Force, and I wonder, and I'm don't want to spoil too much or anything like that. It's like, that I'm wondering if it's like something that like, they're still trying to stay incognito, because I'm assuming that, if they use the Force too much, people are going to be able to sense it and stuff like that. And they can't let everyone know that the Sith have returned yet. So I find it interesting when they decide to use the Force and the ways that they decide to use the Force. So yeah, I
100% agree. It's extremely covert. It's actually mentioned that Tenebris and Plagueis left their lightsabers inside their ship when they were going to mine the Cortosis, or to get it. And that immediately made me think like they're not trying to cause any attention. And I think that's due to generations of having this idea of this is all for the sake of the grand plan. We can't reveal ourselves. I just think it's really great. And it also kind of opened my eyes a bit to how Darksiders operate. When you watch the movies, especially as a kid, you immediately think like, oh, dark side, super evil. It's all, they crave power. And I mean, yes, all of that's true. But seeing Plagueis interact with characters and the world, you kind of see him in a not exactly good light, but you see him in a way that like, he's not this, mustache twirling evil guy. He's calculative and he is evil. But it's strange to see Sith interact with the common folk, because they do so in such a way that it's just very natural to them, and they're all about wearing a mask. And I just think it's very cool in the presentation.
Well, I recently read the book, and I won't get into any spoilers, but just like the way, sorry, I should probably say what the book is. It was Darth Maul's Shadowhunter, and the way, obviously, that I think that book, takes place. We're jumping a generation ahead of the Rule of Two. Now it's Palpatine and Maul, and the way Maul interacts with the world around him, in the underworld of Coruscant, he's a lot. There are times where he's definitely trying to be a little bit more discreet and low key, but he is itching for a fight. He is ready. He has been groomed to get to take the fight to the Jedi, whereas Plagueis and Tenebris have been very like they are the only two Sith, and nobody really knows what's happened to the Sith. I mean, the Jedi think that they have been destroyed for a millennia, as they say, and so and it's very interesting to see like the probably my favorite part in these 3 chapters, and I have a list of like quotes. I don't need to get to all of them, but what I was like, dude, the way Plagueis is trying to barter and deal with the crew of the Woebegone, I was like, Plagueis could very easily become my favorite Sith Lord. Like, and that was something that I was not expecting. I was like, okay, the way he is interacting with them, he's being very like, I don't need to draw any more attention than I need to. Obviously, he has evil intentions, but he's trying to barter with them, which is something that is, you see that like with your iconic Sith Lords like Vader and Maul and people like that. They don't really do that. Plagueis is very much, he's just sitting there in a container. He's bleeding out. He's been bleeding out for hours, suppressing his pain. And he's like, yeah, you just need to take me to my planet and I'll give you all the money you need. Don't ask any questions. of course they ask questions, and the chapter ends with he says like their fates basically are already sealed.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to presume he's going to kill them all. But like the last thing that he says is he just says, "Don't, Captain, don't do it." Like, and it's like, and that is something that like the Sith would be like, "Yeah, do it, man. I'm gonna kill you." Like that's
or like not even giving them the chance to speak to them. Like you brought up with Maul and Vader, they're just snapping necks and cashing checks. Like for them, for him to have a conversation with them. The one thing that I think for Plagueis, the big defining thing that I forgot, because Seth, I agree, I've read this one whole time before this. So one thing I forgot was how much not like a regular Sith he is in terms of, like you said, Cole, when you look at the movies, the mustache twirling, the evil, the plotting from behind. Like Maul says it in Phantom Menace, like, "At last we reveal ourselves to the Jedi." Like all of that. This is all before that, so they have to act like there's no separation between them and the person that they are talking to. So for them to be able to delve in this world and work between the rules of society as opposed to like a Maul or a Vader who just, they have how many hallway scenes between all of them just slicing people in half. Plagueis could easily do that, especially now that he has both lightsabers from his and Tenebris on his hip. But he just chooses not to and just chooses to talk to them. Is very cool. And I think the best example of this is probably the difference in my head of like a Plagueis and a Sidious, or like a Plagueis and a Maul, is more like Fire and Ice, where like Maul and Vader, there's so much rage in them. Plagueis doesn't have any rage, is something that I think is very different, at least here to start off the book. There's nothing where like he has this driving passion. It's more of a sense of destiny, I feel like, of when he hears the Force speaking to him. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is more of a thing of it's almost honorable in a weird twisted sense of this is what he needs to do to continue it. And if I can just throw a quote at you guys, my favorite part of these first 3 chapters is when he just snaps Tenebris's neck.
Oh my God.
To me, it's almost funny because he's having a full conversation with him, and then he just looks over and he goes, "Well," and karate chops his neck. So just for the quote, he's talking to him. Plagueis leaned away from him nonchalant, but in fact filled with an icy fury. There you go again, the fire and ice sort of deal. More of a cold Sith rather than that fiery rage. "I'll find a way home, Tenebris, as will you." And with a chopping motion of his left hand, he broke the Bith's neck. After just having this full conversation. And what's great is Tenebris is like, "Yes, you should do this. I thought wrong of you for not being able to take my place and for continue the rule of 2. But instead, well, now it's time." Chops his neck and then just steps forward to do the next thing. And I think that is the perfect example of Plagueis as a character now for this part.
You know, to your point, Will, on that, you know, their conversation, something about like talking about them being more cool and calculated, Plagueis and
Tenebris.
Tenebris. I know. I always want to say Teneboris. I don't know why. Anyway, they almost seem like they view themselves as the heroes, which I know is a typical thing with villains, right? But I don't really see that in a Palpatine. He doesn't really feel like the hero. He doesn't. I don't even think he views himself that way. It's all about
all he
control
wants
for him.
is his power. Yeah.
Yes. Whereas like these guys, like here's a specific quote here. It's this is from Tenebris to Plagueis. "You are fated to bring the Sith imperative to fruition, Plagueis. It falls to you to bring the Jedi Order to its knees and to save the rest of the galaxy's sentience from themselves." I mean, that kind of language from a Sith, you know, saving them. I mean, it's very much in this box of control, which I think is ultimately what separates Sith from the Jedi, is they want to control the Force, whereas the Jedi view themselves as agents of the Force, which is ultimately, you know, with the primary driving force of their ideologies. But I mean, that right there is very interesting to me, that at least Tenebris will see Plagueis as we keep going forward, but it seems he, in some ways, has taken on his master's heritage, that they think that they are going to save the galaxy's sentience from themselves. And this kind of like a gilded cage kind of way. I've heard that described when it's coming to control. They're going to put all the galaxy in a golden cage where it's all controlled, but in an ideal world, that's you have your meals, you have your everything paid for, but it's all under the complete control and guise of the Sith. And I just found that very interesting. And and later I didn't find the exact quote, but I think it's in the next chapter. Plagueis mentions how one of their allies is death, and it's this weird dichotomy. Like it's very interesting. Whereas I feel like in the movies you do get that the Sith and the Jedi they're definitely different, but I feel like here they really feel like they're two sides of the same coin, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I've always had this. I've always had this perception of Force users in Star Wars, like people refer to them as like, oh, they're space monks. Well, you don't forget, Darksiders are dark space monks. They're still in service to the Force, but it's to the dark side of the Force. And so yeah, I think especially when he comes to this realization at the end of the third chapter, it's less like I'm going to kill all of these crew members because they're defying me. He's literally having this conversation with his own mind, thinking, oh, this is how it was always meant to happen. Like they were fated to die by my hand. This is just the way that it is. Whereas I feel like Palpatine would go, for their insolence, they will die by my hands. Instead, Plagueis is just kind of accepting, I suppose this is the way that it's meant to be. But to bounce off of what Will had said about Tenebris and Plagueis' last conversation, the thing is like he's having this nonchalant conversation as Tenebris is dying, and Tenebris is like, "Oh, you've outdone me. This is the way it was meant to be. You're to lead the Sith imperative, right?" And it's only after Tenebris realizes that Plagueis in this act caused the ship to crash that he's like, "You failed, actually." Like maybe I was right to not put faith in you. And then Plagueis is just kind of bam, it's all that apprentice rage that comes out in one ice strike instead of like just the fiery rage that his the descendants of the Sith line end up having.
I also thought it was hilarious because I was very confused at first that like Tenebris didn't realize that what had happened. Like he was like, "Oh, I died by some rocks," and then he was like, "Wait, you did it! Like you killed me!" And then he's like, "This is the way it is." Wait, you've blown up the ship! Like you're good, and it's like, yeah, exactly. Plagueis chaps. It's just very like, I was like, is it really shows like, oh, it was time. Well, I'm getting very Sithy here, but it was time for Tenebris to go. Like he's has now. I mean, Plagueis says it himself. Like he's become weak, and so now like that was the chance that Plagueis used to usurp the master role. And I think that's just so interesting, man. I don't know.
Oh, you're right. I mean, I think again, like it's Plagueis isn't this kind of guy that's like, I can't wait to kill Tenebris. He literally just has this realization. It's his time to die, which is kind of scarier in my way. Like it's this type of Sith that is just, to quote a Marvel character, burdened with glorious purpose.
You said it before me.
Oh,
I've been waiting to say it. The Sith are burdened with glorious
that
purpose.
one's locked in the chamber.
I'm so sorry. That's just that's exactly what it is. I mean, they feel like this is their job, whereas Palpatine more or less feels like he's like, I guess I have to rule the galaxy, like he wants to, whereas Plagueis kind of feels like he has to. So I just think that, and also I just love how in one chapter they like James gives us this full dynamic of what Plagueis and Tenebris's relationship was like. Because the entire reason why Plagueis, gives him the neck chop is because it seems like that master and apprentice relationship was full of endless critique. Probably never any, praise, which, not to be expected. but Plagueis certainly didn't like it. So,
and even more of like, just to continue on with the differences between Tenebris and Plagueis versus like the master and apprentice relationship that other Sith have had that we've seen in the movies or in the shows or anything, is they just seem almost like they're constantly helping each other, and there's actually a learning sort of deal with him. Whenever Tenebris is talking to Plagueis, it's always in a place of, this is something that you need to know and you should learn this. Whereas opposed to, I feel like with like Sidious and Maul, or like Sidious and Vader, it was always they were a pawn. They were almost a pet. They were something to be used, as opposed to Tenebris, who was like actually trying to teach him and understand what he thinks, and they have discussions, which I thought was incredible. I think the biggest difference between this relationship that they have, and even just the way that they act as Sith versus the Sith that we see directly after this, like Plagueis does this one thing and he sets a domino effect of Sidious, Maul, Dooku, Vader, and it's all, I mean, really outside of like Dooku, I guess, who is more intellectual than a lot of the other apprentices for Sidious, they're all so violent and they're just ready to go after it. And especially with Sidious too, where you see him later on with like the trying to go into the world between worlds and trying to get this all powerful thing. The best quote, I think, to start this book off as kind of a prequel to the prequels, is when Tenebris says, "To be strong in the Force is one thing, but to believe oneself to be all-powerful is to invite catastrophe. Remember that even in the ethereal realm we inhabit, the unforeseen can occur." So even still, rather than the Force being something that you have to control, it's still something that no matter how much you want to control it, the Force is still going to win at the end of the day. So it's how you deal with that will make you all powerful at the end, which I think is a completely different perspective for a Sith than anybody else has, like, following this lineage.
Yeah, well, like how you just said, how them two together isn't like how other Sith are. I got that feeling when I was listening to it too. So I listened to the audio version today, and like it felt like a master and apprentice, like on a crazy mission, almost like a Obi-Wan and Anakin on a mission somewhere, and it going wrong. That's what it felt like, and I digged it because it was different, and I wanted more of the story until he ended up dropping all the rocks on him. But I love the visuals that it gave me. Since I was listening to the audio, and it was funny, I was driving while I was listening to it, running some errands today, and the part where they're running back to the ship and the explosion is coming, and just in my mind, I saw Tenebris using the Force to stop the flames, and then you see Plagueis fall down, and then how he looks up and sees the rocks falling on the ship, and him using the Force. Like, I visualized that, and I was like, man, that looks so cool. Like, I wish I could see this like in a movie or a show or something. And then when Plagueis saw the rocks falling on his master and he stopped them, and then he said he used the Force and pushed it down with all his might, I was like, no, like it caught me off guard. I was like, wow, that was so crazy. And just like that, the conversation, like how he went over there. And at first I'm like, did he not realize that he tried to kill him? How they were just chopping it up for a little bit. And then he realized it. I just loved all that, man. It was great, man.
It fits very. Oh, go ahead, Connor.
Are you sure? I was just going to say, you guys bring up a great point with the difference between these guys' relationship and then Sidious and his apprentices, because I mean, Sidious, I think he sees himself so far above this idea of like, he didn't like the rule of two really, you know, and
but would clearly if you won?
Yeah, and I mean, and like you just said, I mean, Sidious won, so of course he's not. I mean, and he's like
on
what
top.
Will said, he's training pawns. He's not training replacements.
No,
and that's the big difference. I mean, Tenebris even understands, like, oh, I guess it's my time to go. Yeah, all right, this is the way of the Sith. Palpatine at any one of these moments, you know, I mean, when he gets, can you even picture him giving up that power?
I think it's because, like, in his eyes, the Sith it was all about the grand plan, And so I think when Palpatine, like when he does it, he's like, well, there's no reason for me to pass on what I've learned anymore. I'm at the top. I did it. So clearly I'm the zenith of the Sith Order. So I think and I'm interested to see if this book goes into that, but I feel like his paradigm for training, the reason why Maul and Vader, all so angry, is because he only needs to train destroyers. He needs enforcers to enforce his empire, not to build someone wise to carry on what he's learned, because there's no reason he won.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing about arrogance when it comes to Palpatine, because he can back it up. So he has every reason to be arrogant and confident, because who's going to beat him at the end of the day? The only reason he ever got beat wasn't because anybody was more powerful than him. It's because he was so evil that he couldn't see the good in someone else.
Imagine being so evil and just that it completely blindsides you. That's why I love some of those Legends explanations that Palpatine just didn't sense Vader behind him because he was so high on Force lightning. Like literally just giving into it, having the best time of his life.
So talking about Palpatine now, so one real quick, just quick quote from his prologue here: the dark side had made him its property, and now he made the dark side his.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't really have much to say about that. I just really like that quote. I think it speaks for itself. It's really good. But the main thing I wanted to say is at the end of the first chapter here, talking about essence transfer.
I was going to ask. That was on my list. I would like someone to expound upon that, because I don't know what that is.
So I just to launch the conversation off here, the only thing I have to say about this. So it's odd to me that James goes through the effort to mention this, and then also mention, the idea of essence transfer, that when you die, it passes on, and then to mention that the last guy who knew it died.
Yep.
But then it was lost. Now granted, this could just be, it's some foreshadowing, maybe. I haven't finished the book yet, but I just think that that's a really clever setup.
Yeah.
For something. And then, so, gee, goodness, and say what you will about Tross, but that's what Palpatine's trying to do there.
Yeah.
Transfer. Yeah. And so it's kind of a nice through line when you get to that point.
That makes a nice little connecting thread. I like that.
So it goes into a couple of like the really praising and putting Bane and cortosis and the rule of two, and then this essence transfer. They're putting all of this stuff on a very high pedestal, and I have not. Yeah, and I'm like, I know what the rule of two is. I know about Bane. I know about cortosis. That's one of those things that you just, even if you haven't read it, you kind of learn through the grapevine. But yeah, is essence transfer essentially kind of like what they did a lot in Legends, where they're like transferring their spirit into another body?
Yeah, it looks like Retney's answered for us.
Oh wait, is he? You just Sethed me, Retney. I was about to say the best example of this is Dark Empire, which I think is my favorite of the essence transfer. I think a lot of times it gets, when you say essence transfer, you're like, oh, cloning. But it really is that the separation between the two of either you need the clone to do the essence transfer, which
an
I
empty
think
host makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the whole, and not to talk about the Rise of Skywalker too much. But when he's like that, the puppet body of the essence transfer, I think that's, like Cole just said, like that's a through line that I forgot about, that I was like, oh, because when you think about Rise of Skywalker, at least in my head, I always thought of him living on the essence transfer sort of deal. He says this every time. I'm unsubscribing to Retney's Holocron.
Take the hat off right now.
Unsubbed.
Yep. Switch your hats.
Unsubbed. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, wait. The through line between that and the Rise of Skywalker, I very much enjoy, because outside of Dark Empire, where that essence transfer sort of happens, it's cool to see something that a lot of people, although it is Legends, will and is not canon, people go, well, that's my canon. and a lot of people who the Rise of Skywalker shun. It's kind of that same thing where it's at least the seedlings are planted here and then grown upon that far down the line for a movie that a lot of people don't like. You know what I mean?
Now there is a thing in canon that has this essence transfer. Lord Momin from the Vader comics.
The helmet.
Right.
Correct.
You can put your essence into an object, not just
and that is a really cool version of that. I remember reading that, a nice just visual usage of it. It was almost comedic because you would see panel by panel he was just different, so you knew that Vader cut him down every time.
Moment's mask is so cool too.
Yeah.
So I mean, we get those through lines there too. So it is little breadcrumbs.
Is Lord Momin the mask from the Lando comic as well?
Yes.
The one that
Yeah,
okay, because that was Charles Soule and he connected it back, right?
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the first
I
time it
didn't know
ever
that.
appears as in that 4-issue miniseries
Yeah,
of
it was,
Lando. And it's,
It was initially on Palpatine's stealth craft.
yep.
Okay.
His nice little yacht.
Very cool.
Oh, was it the stealth craft? I couldn't remember if I was like, was it the scimitar? Like he had repurposed the scimitar, but I can't remember.
I don't know. I just remember I remember it having state-of-the-art stealth technology that wasn't on the market yet. I don't know why I specifically remembered that one fact. My brain was just like, oh, that's cool. I'll take that.
Yeah.
But
the question that I have for you guys, it was kind of aimed towards Seth, because I know he is the Bane guy. You're the Bane guy. That's just what I have dubbed in my head. It says, so I've got the quotes here, 2 quotes that are not back to back, but pretty close in proximity, which we kind of referenced already. In Bane's age, a Sith might have had to guard against an attempt at essence transfer by the deceased, a leap into the consciousness of the Sith who survived. The last Sith possessed of the knowledge had been inexplicably drawn to the light side and killed, taking the secret process with him. Who was that? Was that connected to Bane?
So all I remember is that Bane jumps into his apprentice and he destroys his body in the doing so. And they fight inside her head. And she claims that everything's good, that he's gone. But her left side is like all crunching up. And that was something that he would do. So some of him is still in her. And that's like the last you ever hear about him.
that's cool.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry to ruin the 3rd book. But
It's one of those things where, like, obviously we like, and I want to give like a little disclaimer thing. I was like, we're going to try to avoid spoilers, but there's also things, like I said, you hear from the grapevine before you even read the books and stuff like that. You're like, I know a good bit about Bane just from like the reverence that the Star Wars community has for him. Like, you got to know Darth Bane, but I don't know the nitty gritty, the details. And so I think even if you know popular plot beats, like whether you know, like, oh yeah, like, you know, this is what happens in Plagueis or Bane or the Thrawn trilogy, whatever, it's still really good. Like, there's so much discussion to be had, even in the smallest sections of the book, because, you know, with the writing style that, at least in this instance, James Luceno has, like, there's so many good quotes. And Seth, something that you had on your outline that I think we should absolutely talk about is the reverence the references to the emphasis on the midichlorians. There's a lot of emphasis on midichlorians, and I want to kind of get into that, because that, like you said, when those movies were coming out, that was a big topic at the time, was what the heck are these midichlorians things? Like, this is stupid or whatever. But like, I think this book does a really interesting job addressing it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, we can just open it up to discussion. I mean, if you guys want to talk about midichlorians, we could talk about midichlorians. Yeah.
There was even a comment about that too. Andreas said, I didn't think I'd like the book because it's all dark side point of view, but it's fascinating. Learn so much about midichlorians as translators of the Force rather than Force emitting organisms.
Yeah, it's really cool, because it's like it's more so like, and it kind of goes into that thing of what we've seen in recently in Ahsoka or other stories, is like, you know, it's not about how many midichlorians you have. That just helps you get to like use the Force better, because that means you have more translators working in your body. But like, you know, we see someone like Sabine who has basically very little Yeah, like 1.5, maybe 3 on a good day. You know, 1 sleeping.
Well,
But like
Luke says it best in the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. It's a
yes,
it's a door.
yes,
for
it's
some
just
people,
how
fairly
easy.
cracked,
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that you mentioned earlier that, and I'm going to address these comments here in just a second.
I swear, Retney's on
Why
it.
are
we even here? Why are we here?
Hey,
Like, why-
Retney.
Yeah.
I guess Connor
Why are we
watches your
listening to
videos
him?
too,
Gathered
huh?
around a campfire.
Nerd.
Retney's the guy. He's like, well, no, I'm kidding. Retney, you are so knowledgeable. I appreciate you a ton. Yeah,
Dude, how much you got in that holocron, man?
He's got it all.
One big holocron.
One big holocron.
Yeah, but the idea of like the Sith, and I've got a quote here, but like, you know, well, I mean, we hear it in the excerpt, especially in Revenge of the Sith, but like Plagueis, his thing is, you know, Tenebrous is a very mathematical and analytic Sith, whereas Plagueis is like, he's really trying to tap into controlling these midichlorians and doing his bidding. And that's kind of just also a good like allegory for like the Jedi. They are submitting to the Force, whereas the Sith are trying to just twist it, manipulate it, and grasp it. And I like it says, yeah, a quote that and goes back to the comment. A common misconception held that midichlorians were force-carrying particles when in fact they functioned more as translators. Okay, this word, I'm sorry, I'm kind of dumb. Interlocutors? Is that how you say it? I don't know. Of the will of the Force. And then there was another quote that I had here. Someone can chime in. It's not that important, but I don't know. I can't find it. Oh well. But it's interesting stuff. Like I think people just got so riled up in the early days by the ideas of the midichlorians because that's what they thought. They didn't realize it was doors. They just thought like, oh, here is a Super Saiyan metric of how you have to measure your power.
Well, I mean, that wasn't described in the movies. You know, back in 1999, it's like, wait, it's germs in your blood? That's what makes you special? Like, I mean, that's what you get when you just watch the movies. They don't really go into that.
Yeah,
you know, I remember us talking about that maybe they were a unit of measurement. That's it. That like they don't actually, it's just a way of gauging how open the door is.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I got you, man.
That's one of those things in
I
Star
knew it
Wars
right away. I knew it.
Kind of fun with like the breadth of creators that we have is like something is like a throwaway that George threw in 1999. Some people didn't like it, but what's cool is that all of these other writers and creators have now taken that and be like, how can we take this concept that maybe some people don't like, maybe some people do, and just build on it rather than just get rid of it. Let's build on it and make it better. And I think this book is a great example of that, like making the midichlorians make more sense and be more deeper and make just convey that message a lot better. I think that that's fun. We see that time and time again in Star Wars is that, and we're talking about Rise of Skywalker, not to get too much back on that, but like, that's what is exciting about those movies and what's going on right now is that instead of just throwing them away, it's fun to see how these creators are going to build and make it better. And that's what that's kind of, not that this is new, but it's kind of what this is doing, you know?
But yeah, it's like, you know, I know we're mentioning Rise of Skywalker a lot, but it's like, it's
got Palpatine in it,
I was going to say, I mean, it's kind of his shtick though.
Yeah. Like, and to me, this, I feel like, and I know this book isn't canon, but so far, like, I like to go into these Legends novels. I'm like, okay, what contradicts this from it not being canon, right? Other than it just says the big Legends banner at the top. And it's like, you can get into like the very fine details, but so far, I'm like, from what I know, there is nothing here that is saying like, it does not fit into the continuity of anything new in canon.
Hey, shout out Jeremy Bloor. He's a guy on our channel a lot. Great to see you, Jeremy. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah, Jeremy, what's up?
Bouncing off of what Grayson said, it's this thing that I will say almost every time when canon and Legends come into question with Star Wars. This is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And as legends and myths go, they're told in different ways. And so I think that when it comes to Star Wars, it's so vast that, you can pick and choose like your own story, your own tale, and just see what works for you. Yes, it's presented in a mainstream way, but just because it happened that way doesn't mean that it has to. I think that level of open-mindedness was not only talked about by George, but also by Dave. Like Dave specifically was like, yeah, like it's all of it's canon in a way. All of it is, and all of it isn't. So yeah, pick and choose. Because that made me feel better about it.
Even in Legends, there's like several different, like I think they put them in letters where they're like, oh, there's A canon and B canon and C canon. There was so many, like, I mean, Colin and I were talking on our favorite characters episode about Grievous, and there's like 3 different ways that Grievous becomes a cyborg. And it's like, even in Legends, they didn't fully know because there's so many creators. Yeah, look at that. Look at that shirt. Yeah, and it's like, now maybe something in the Acolyte shows up where it's like, oh, yeah, I know, whatever. It's going to contradict it. But so far, like, I'm really liking it. One of my favorite eras also is the era, like that 50 years before the Phantom Menace. I don't know why. That time period is just so fascinating to me because it's like, it kind of feels like almost like the calm before the storm in a way, but you're seeing these characters like, whether it's Dooku or Qui-Gon or even Mace Windu, these characters that are like, they are not where we see them and when we jump into the point of the movies. And it's like, especially with the Sith, there is so much lore when it comes to the Sith and so much mystery and so much intrigue that I think James Luceno is just like, I mean, I can, even from the first couple chapters, I can see why this book has so much praise because it's just, it is really presented in a way like, with the midichlorians or however you want to talk about it, like in a way that it's like, see, that makes sense, right? And obviously a book is in a way telling you everything, right? It's not showing you something, so it's kind of different when it comes to movies. But like it, those little lines can go a long way. But so I this has been lingering on my mind, so I want to mention it. And it's just a one-off thing. Someone mentioned how let me go ahead and give proper credit. Padawan Chronicles mentioned. And I saw Tony put it up on the screen. What if Emperor Snoke turned out to be Plagueis all along? I remember that theory back in the day.
Dude, that was the theory.
Your Snoke theory sucks. Remember that?
Yes. Yep. I remember.
I was going in thinking that it was the truth.
I still think I'm going to have a Snoke theory right here.
Let's go. Let's go.
I still, in The Mandalorian season 3, they were talking about strand casting. I think Palpatine strand casted Plagueis and his own DNA and made Snoke. That's my theory.
I was actually going to say something incredibly similar where I was like, oh, maybe it's not like Snoke isn't just like a clone or is Plagueis, but is a broken, I mean, we see Palpatine's body in The Rise of Skywalker is very dilapidated and broken. But the one in the Plagueis, or sorry, the Snoke body is like, yeah, it's like, because when The Force Awakens came out, we were like, oh man, like, who is this guy? Is this Plagueis? And he's been alive, or he figured out how, or he's in this just crappy body. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's, the only hang up that I have is like, it's Snoke. Snoke is just looks more human-esque. I mean, he definitely has alien features, but like the way Plagueis' species, I don't know if it's
Moon. Well, to be fair, we didn't know anything.
Okay.
I mean, Canon doesn't tell us anything about Moon. We don't even know that he is a moon.
We don't,
Canon, do we?
No, but this.
I mean, I know this
we got.
Book, but I don't know. I mean, one thing. There's a musical cue in Force Awakens that's John Williams put in there during Snoke's scene that is from the opera scene, and when talking about Plagueis. Now that could have been just John Williams running a little wild, but
it is strikingly similar, like almost identical. Man,
I actually, if I had to venture a guess, I think that was probably John Williams being creative and not so much JJ, because JJ very much did not want to reference the prequels of The Force Awakens. So
we know this, yeah.
So it looks like outside of whatever Retney's comment was, because I know he's going to say he said it first. The difference between Plagueis to make it not canon, that kind of, this is everybody. Retney is Pablo Hidalgo's best friend. So go on Twitter and look how many times that they've talked to each other on Twitter. That's his best friend.
Really? That's cool.
They have a group chat together, and it's not even a group chat. They just text each other.
They should make a book club.
Yep. So it looks like the main difference is how
Maul's origin.
So not only Maul's origin, but the issue once and for all, a good portion of Johnston's novel is set immediately prior to the Star Wars prequel trilogy, including the same time period Lucino covered in Darth Plagueis, but Lucino presented Palpatine as still being an apprentice during the events of Star Wars Episode 1. Maul was technically a Sith assassin recruited to the cause with Plagueis' blessing, and Palpatine only killed his master after attempting to become Chancellor. In contrast, Johnston, so this is a separate book that kind of retconned this after.
Okay.
I haven't gotten that part of the book yet.
As the definitive Dark Lord of the Sith. This came out in 2011. The Dark Lord of the Sith through the whole story. There's no way to reconcile these two books. Darth Plagueis should therefore be considered non-canon. So outside of that, it's like also Maul's on the back cover. Outside of that, like the separation between how they were viewed as like apprentice and like, oh, Maul wasn't his apprentice at the time. He was just an assassin and stuff like that, I guess is like a bigger part of why now it's not canon. And I don't remember the book that talks about that before. Oh, E.K. Johnston's new canon novel, Queen's Peril, apparently takes place around this same time, which I've never read. However, during this time, I guess it twists a lot of the Lucino stuff.
See, that's the one thing I did know about this book was how it shows that Plagueis was alive during the Phantom Menace, and I never liked that.
I don't like that either. Wait, who said that?
I always thought
Connor, that just made me laugh.
I don't know. To be honest with you, that's the main reason I've never read this book. Like you guys can, I mean, I've always heard that everything was great about it, and I'm like, I admit I am a stickler for canon sometimes, and I've been working on it. I've been doing some soul searching, and yeah, so that's always bothered me. So I'm curious how it will bother me going forward. But that they call him Darth Maul, in the Phantom Menace, and like Darth is a specific title. So it just seems I don't know why. Maybe I'll find out when we finish the book. I don't know why do that. Why make the deliberate choice when you could have easily just have not done that? I don't know. It was weird. It's weird to me.
Maybe it was just a way to kind of illustrate how Palpatine was already confident about undermining Plagueis. Like he already had everything set in stone. He was just waiting for the moment to strike.
And I've given that some thought too, that it was probably Palpatine already being like, screw the rule of two. He is Darth Maul. He is a Sith Lord. I don't care what my master says. I'm going to kill him eventually anyway. I'm just waiting for the opportune moment, and I'm sure that we'll get more context as we read. You two who have read this are probably like, you idiot, you're going to find out soon enough. But that is something that's always bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
But if I can change gears a little bit to something that I really liked from chapter 2, we were talking about Bane a minute ago and like the Sith and all of the like lore that we get in here about the Sith. Read a quote here just to open the discussion up from what you guys think about this. He knew this from travels with and without Tenebris, that he wasn't the galaxy's sole practitioner of the dark side, nor Sith for that matter, since the galaxy was rife with pretenders. But he was now the only Sith Lord descended from the Bane line, a true Sith, and that realization roused the raw power coiled inside him. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. It made me think, like when I read that, I was like, what if some guy down the line just said that he was from the Bane line and Plagueis just thinks that he is? Like, I don't know. It just kind of puts it into question. I know that like 98% sure, like, yeah, he's from the Bane line. But I think it was cool that there are many people claiming to be Sith, but not actually.
Well, the whole idea too that the Bane line knows that about the rule of two and they adhere to it. Like if you're not from that line, it's just, oh, look what I can do. I can move this cup. I could choke you. Yeah, they're not going to know anything about that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's just, again, as we said earlier, the door can be opened for lots of people.
And I bet that's who the Jedi are taking care of.
Exactly.
They're all going out like, hey, we got a dark sider, we got a pretender over here.
Exactly.
And that's probably why they grew so arrogant over time. Is like, yeah, the Sith aren't back. Like, you got these idiots popping up from on planet to planet.
In my head, it kind of mirrored
like what you were saying.
Yeah. In my head, it kind of mirrored, like, for Mando when we saw obviously his sect of the Mandalorian culture versus like the Night Owls of who can take their helmets off and who can't. It's like they're all Mandalorians, but some can, some can't. It's just the lineage. And it's funny to me thinking of the Bane line where they kill their master before them and everybody else has been killed before them. So the only knowledge that they have when they kill their master is I am now in charge of all of it, like a living holocron of it's what I pass on, and that's it. So there could be things that they have learned that they just choose to never talk about with their apprentice that just dies with them, which I think is super interesting because it gives, talking about power for the Sith, it gives them so much power in the knowledge that they have from the lineage past that once they're gone, if oh, hey, I forgot to tell you, and then they're dead, that just dies with them. You know what I mean? So I've always thought that was interesting.
There's even a quote that kind of alludes, not like one-to-one, but there's that, like, basically Plagueis is like, yeah, from what I know or what I was told, Bane went around and pillaged the graves and the tombstones of the previous Sith Lords, and the spirits of the Sith Lords, like, kind of haunted him or whatever. He's like, but it literally says, like, the opening, and I'm paraphrasing, he's like, but that was just by word of mouth. Like, I don't know if that's like someone, it's the telephone game, right? Like, you're literally going one-to-one to one-to-one. And these are big periods of times where it's just like, okay, there's only two of them, right? And I mean, it depends also, like, how long their respective species live and stuff like that. Because right now, with Tenebrous and Plagueis, like, I don't know how long Bith and Moon live.
Well, they do have 3 hearts.
Yeah.
Yep, he does say that.
He does.
It adds a bit of strategy too on the part of the apprentice. Like, maybe there were other opportunities to kill Tenebrous earlier in Plagueis's tenure as the apprentice, but he hasn't learned everything yet. So maybe it's not a good idea to kill Tenebrous yet.
Yeah. Well, it also puts into question, like, what if there's a Sith along the line that wants to change the paradigm, like Palpatine, for instance? I don't want to teach you anything that they taught me. I want to teach you how to be angry because I need you to destroy people. I'm thinking about how much knowledge has been lost from this very elongated game of telephone.
I mean, you bring up a great point though, Cole. Like that Palpatine kind of broke this. I mean, that is you could argue a flaw of Palpatine, but we see with Tenebrous and Plagueis that they're not like that. They do want to pass on. It's weird. It's almost like I noticed when Tenebrous dies, it's almost like a dark mirror to, like, when Yoda dies, and talking to Luke, like, pass on what you have learned. But it's very odd.
He's just angry about it.
It's a weird path with the torch.
This
is now your glorious purpose. You have to do this.
It's literally just like, thank you for killing me. Go on.
You did it. You win. It's also different too, like, the difference between when you look at Sidious, who enforces the rule of 2, like Yoda says, always 2 there are, and in Phantom Menace, how it's always the apprentice killing the other apprentice, and he's just like, well, I'm safe. Like, it's like a weird game of tag where it's like, I'm on base. You 2 have to figure out which one's going to be left alone to fill out that rule of 2. So obviously Maul dies, Dooku dies, Anakin kills Dooku. Like, it's them having to kill each other. And then the same thing with Return of the Jedi when he tries to get Luke to kill Vader. It's that thing of like, well, I'm still going to be around, but my underlings are going to have to do my bidding for me, which I always loved, as opposed to this complete difference of where Plagueis and Tenebrous kind of seem like the rule of 2, as much as it is inevitable. It's more of like, a way of being, whereas Sidious is more like excited to use that to his advantage.
Like a reverse ruler too.
Yeah.
Man, you bring up a really interesting point there, Will. Like almost like Palpatine has assumed the role of the dark side itself.
Yeah.
And his apprentices are now the rule of two. He always is having his apprentice kill his new apprentices.
And that goes back to that same quote of to be strong in the Force is one thing, but to believe oneself to be all-powerful is to invite catastrophe. Remember that even in the ethereal realm we inhabit, the unforeseen can occur, of like, no matter, and Cole, you brought it up too, of like, he was just so like high on the dark side of the Force that he's like, this is me. I am the dark side of the Force. I am in charge of all of this. When really the Force was like, well, obviously I know what's best. I'm going to give the Force a persona of the Force does what the Force does. I think that's just the best way. And that's also a really good quote too, of like explaining Sidious's story, of to think of one as all powerful. And what in my head, when I read that, I just think of him in Revenge of the Sith, of unlimited power, of literally being transformed. Like all of this is happening around him, and he's taking in that pain, that transformation of, this is my doing. I am the one doing this, not the will of the Force, which I think is just a big difference between Sidious and the way that almost all other Force users think.
Yeah.
It's a strange, twisted irony too, because even though Sidious won, even though he executed the grand plan, he was still essentially like the last master of the line. And so it died with him because he didn't adhere to that willingness to pass on. He never wanted to die.
Yeah.
And so without that discipline, he allowed it to fail.
That's a great point.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question. If Palpatine, even after he had won, had trusted in Vader, let's say, even with his brokenness, and been like, all right, we won, but I might still die at some point by your hand or by someone else's. I must pass on what I have learned. Could the Sith have endured even longer? It's a great question.
Maybe.
It seems like, from what I think, from like what we've kind of talked about, that Sidious is almost like the most anti-Sith, where like in terms of like, we think of him as like the Sith, they're like, oh, they are just the evil mustache twirling guys, like Cole said. But in actuality, like, it's not like Tenebrous, where he's like, this is supposed to happen. This is what lets us be stronger. Whereas Palpatine he's like, I'm the pinnacle of strength. And there's a chapter in the Empire Strikes Back, from a certain point of view book, where it's a very good chapter, probably my favorite story in that book, where he is having, it is the causation of why he tells Vader, like, oh, about Luke, like, we need to, or the son of Anakin Skywalker, like, we could use him, like, because he has a dream that, Vader and Luke team up against him to overthrow him. And like, I don't know, it feels like in my head, if he was thinking about that, like, oh, maybe if he was really enacting the philosophy of the Sith, it's like, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But he's so afraid of that happening that he, again, he's the manipulator, right? Manipulates Vader to be like, oh, and we know Vader is like, we could overthrow the Emperor. That's kind of his thing, right? But Palpatine goes at all costs to make sure that does not happen,
Now, in that story, that's he has a vision that Luke and Vader team up in the dark side, right? To defeat him, right?
Yeah, that Luke.
That's the key that I think is so powerful about that story, and it's also the fatal flaw of Palpatine, and ultimately the downfall of the Sith. Is that he could not foresee the good.
Yeah.
We talk about this on our show a lot, is about how Palpatine's like Sauron. Sauron never foresaw Frodo and Sam going to Mordor because why would they destroy ultimate power? Why would they do that? It never crossed his mind.
Yeah.
And so he did expect Aragorn, to come to the front gates, just like Palpatine expects Vader to turn Luke against him, but he never expects Vader to kill him out of compassion for his son. And so it's just such a cool, it's such a great, I don't know, into that story that they
I mean, I just think it's really fascinating that, like, you know, Tenebris understands his like place in everything, and like Palpatine, like it's almost like a Jedi way, like the way he passes on, he just accepts it. You know, they're like Palpatine's so caught up with being on this plane of existence, like not even thinking about that, like not thinking about like Force ghosts or I don't even know if like essence transfer, but like even like putting himself into like an object or something like that. That it's just he's very again just I'm my own god, basically, for lack of a better term. Yeah, that,
clinging
like,
onto this plane.
This is it. This is the finality of it. I cannot see anything past that.
So I was thinking about this because I remembered a quote from chapter 1 that made me realize I think this actually started with Plagueis. It didn't start with Palpatine, because one of the last things he says to Tenebris is, "Your death comes at my bidding. You said yourself the perpetuation with purpose is the way to victory, and so it is. Go to your grave knowing you are the last of the old order, the vaunted rule of two, and that the new order begins now and will for 1,000 years remain in my control." I don't think he plans to give it up. So, like, I'm just giving predictions for the rest of the book. Like, he's going to train Palpatine, but maybe the reason why Palpatine has this idea in his head is because Plagueis never intended to give it up. So it makes it very interesting. It doesn't seem like Plagueis is very interested in the rule of two.
That is a good... I'm looking at Aklon's question, because I was thinking about that just a few minutes ago. Has there been a time where a lone Sith dies before he gets a new apprentice, making it so the next master has to start from nothing?
I mean, in a way, Palpatine twice. I mean, Vader turns back to being a Jedi, and then Palpatine doesn't have time in that 3 seconds to get a new apprentice, and he died. So,
I want to know, bouncing off that question, I wonder how, like, what is the record of a Sith, of one of the masters, how many apprentices they have had, how many underlings? Because Palpatine, I was about to say,
Palpatine has to have that record, man.
Like, it, but also, like, you got to think about this, like, go ahead, Seth.
No, I was like that. Sorry, my brain's now like going crazy because I'm like, well, do you guys prefer the Sith as like an army, like Old Republic, where there's tons of them, or do you like this where they're like hiding in the shadows and there's only 2 of them, and it's like, you know, like we're caught up in like sorcery rather than that they're warriors and they're out on the battlefield and they're commanding armies and fighting against Mandalorian and fighting against Jedi and things like that. I mean, which do you prefer?
So, here's the thing. I love the Old Republic so much. And so seeing those cinematics with, you know, massive armies going head to head, just, you know, neuron activation in my head. I'm like, oh, a lightsaber. But I think I do prefer the Sith to be, you know, 2 or like a small group, because, I mean, Darth Bane kind of gets the idea, like they will destroy each other eventually. But at the same time, it ends up not being effective anyway, because even when there's 2, they're still meant to destroy each other. And so if somewhere it goes wrong, it's all done.
Yes, but Bane took the weakness of the Sith and made it a strength.
Yeah,
I think that. I mean, the quote you said earlier, Cole, the master to have the power and the apprentice to crave it.
Yeah.
I mean, and like what Seth just said, I mean, Tenebris understood his place in all of this. And I think that we don't know about the line of succession all the way up to Bane, but I would assume that there would be a lot of Sith who probably did view it the way Tenebris did.
Yeah.
Who, like, they understood their place in the grand plan. And I think that is the mark of a great leader in any organization. I mean, real life and fictional, when you can take the weakness of a group of people and flip it into a strength. And I think that's the brilliance of the rule of 2. It's like, you have all these Darksiders. I mean, we joked about this with the Inquisitors. That's the Inquisitors. They're always squabbling and fighting. They're bickering. They're yelling at each other. And that's why they don't work. That's why the Sith don't work, you know?
It's ironic that in this way where they operate with a chaotic force, it's discipline that puts them in order. Even a modicum of discipline.
Yeah, well, people are often contradictory, you know.
Yeah. So
I
yeah,
don't know.
personally answer 2.
Yeah, I don't know if I
We
don't
have a
know.
special guest, Shin.
Yeah,
He left us.
Shin, what do you think of the rule of
Shin?
2 now that you've been betrayed by your master and left on a desolate planet? Is the story that you guys are talking about from this book Disturbance the one where it's Palpatine realizing what Vader's plan is all along? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay, because I pulled it out and I was like, I remember reading this a very long time ago. I just didn't remember which story it was too. And what I thought of, and I wanted to check before bringing it up, one of the coolest parts of that story specifically is Palpatine realizing Vader's plan and then telling him, like, oh, I'm going to test him to figure out how he decides to do he's already planning to overthrow me because of Luke, because no matter the machine, his heart still beats of Anakin Skywalker. And that, like, Palpatine's thought there, I think, is such a good example of, I'm going to let my apprentices duke it out and figure out who second tier is going to be, but first tier is still always going to be me. It's that same thing of the amount of mental chess he is playing throughout the galaxy at this point. And honestly, as much as it does kind of throw you right into everything and spoils the end of the book of what's going to happen for Plagueis with the prologue, I think that's a good example too of Sidious, of, like, he's always had this plan, and he is going to figure out his plan rather than the plan of the Sith, because the plan of the Sith for him is what he wants it to be, which I think is just the best example of that transition from Tenebris to Plagueis, Plagueis to Sidious, and then Sidious being the overarching bad guy for 9 films. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, here's something weird. Talking about the difference, or Tenebris and Plagueis, the way that they die, that, like, explosion of the Force when Plagueis dies, I don't know. I found that so intriguing because,
well,
go ahead.
Other Sith Lords make it.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
Tenebris doesn't. It's not so much that Plagueis does; it's that Tenebris doesn't. I think that I find intriguing. I wonder if just that's because Plagueis didn't have the intention of dying. I mean, just what you guys were saying about how this is the new order. He was the last of the rule too. Plagueis did not intend to let Palpatine usurp him. You know, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out different as we keep reading. But I mean, what the prologue seems to indicate when you contrast it with Tenebris's death is that he had all this pent up dark side energy that just exploded. Whereas Tenebris, like you said, was like a Jedi. Okay, I'm going to let my sort of dark side energy pass on. And I think that's very interesting. That it's like, and it also makes me think: did the Jedi sense this? Was Yoda hanging out in his ivory tower, being like,
Wait, he even directly asked that. He's like, at least when Palpatine kills Plagueis in the beginning, I think he says something about, like, or maybe it is with Plagueis and Tenebris. They're basically like, I hope the Jedi didn't hear that. Like,
yeah. I think it's because since the Sith are now focused into just 2, like, all of the energy of the dark side is just concentrated really on these 2 individuals. Yes, there are dark side users throughout the galaxy and Sith pretenders, but if you were to consider, Ashla and Bogan as, like, putting bets on people, Ashla at the time had bets on thousands of Jedi. Bogan had bets on 2 people. Yeah. And so when someone cashes out, that's a whole lot of money, if you know what I mean. So it feels like an explosion in the Force, I guess, like a vergence.
Yeah, it is a great quote, Grayson. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because it is. I actually highlighted it. It said, were his sworn enemies aware that the Force had shifted irrevocably, would it be enough to rouse them from self-righteousness?
Yeah.
Because I've been kind of diving deep on this idea about Yoda, kind of his failure. I don't know if you guys saw Stupendous Wave had a really fun video, I think it was last week, called The Grand Master on Trial.
I heard you mention it on the episode, but I have not watched it.
It's a fun video, just about basically, yeah, Yoda's self-righteousness, basically. And there's a quote in Dooku. Is it? No, it's not in Dooku Jedi Lost. It's in
the Book of the Sith.
Book of the Sith. Yeah, about how Yoda's the problem, And so anyway, put it back here with Plagueis. I wonder if, they were just so full of themselves, They were like, yeah, whatever.
That does add up because, like, from what I understand in canon, Retney, if you're still out there, I know you'll check me on it, that there is a Sith temple buried very deep below the Jedi, and they got to the point where, like, that was kind of part of the thing of, like, they were blinded by that, but also they were already so blind they couldn't.
Did that?
I think they retconned? I don't know. I remember it was in some concepts, even in the back to Rise of Skywalker again. One of the concept openings was we talked about this on is that it wasn't Mustafar. He was going to go take an elevator down to this like ancient Sith temple and get the Wayfinder.
Because those were originally in. Geez, that goes all the way back to ROTJ, doesn't it? Have you ever seen that concept art of the Emperor's throne room?
Yes.
It's in a cave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lava.
It's almost
it kind of looks like Mustafar a little bit.
Yeah. So cool.
That's interesting.
And he's sitting up on like the like, square slab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think of Vader's castle a little bit.
It is. Yeah. It's very similar.
I was thinking, we were talking about like Sith pretenders and the lineage of the Sith, and it got me thinking about like I've never been sure how to feel about this, and they've kind of expounded upon it more, but like most of us knew, prior to the Rise of Skywalker, that like the Sith homeworld, the Sith, breeding grounds, for lack of a better term.
So sick, dude.
Ralph McQuarrie.
Drawing.
The best of all time, dude.
Yeah, that is cool. So cool.
God.
What do we know what planet that was supposed to be on?
Coruscant. I'm almost positive that was Coruscant. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I'm almost positive that was Coruscant.
That would be so cool.
That is so interesting. So I guess people are likening it to the Last Jedi.
So, Grayson, just to give you the validation of knowing that it is canon, it's a Sith shrine that's below, and it's referred to as a shrine in the depths. So originally it's the Sith shrine was introduced in the 2014 novel Tarkin, which is funny because Tarkin is written by James Luceno.
Hey,
it was first identified as the shrine in the depths in the 2021 novel The High Republic Into the Dark, which makes it canon. However, what I always think of when that's brought up is it was supposed to be a Clone Wars episode that was supposed to be expanded on, but it wasn't because it was going to be in the episodes that were canceled. The idea of the Jedi Temple being built over a Sith Temple would have been explored in the story arc Star Wars Clone Wars. In the arc, former Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano would have returned to the Jedi Temple and with several other Jedi taking drilling machines down far beneath the Jedi Temple and discovered a Sith Temple beneath it. Series director Dave Filoni and creator George Lucas decided that the Jedi Temple had been built over ruins from ancient worshippers of the Force, but then they just dropped it.
Man, what are you like getting mad over here? What are you upset about?
Yeah, what's going on?
We don't get that, but instead we get her hanging out with those two sisters for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Putting that out there where it's like,
why'd you have to remind me, man?
The Jedi knew about that though.
Yeah, but I think they did.
Oh,
I think they literally just
over the old establishment.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I think it's just very indicative of their mindset at the time. Like literally just burying the Order. We're above them now. Yeah. It just makes me think of like when these Sith pretenders are mentioned. Just imagine like someone showing up to the Jedi and they're like, the Sith are back. They're like, oh, the Sith is back. Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah, right. I mean, literally, it is that. I mean,
I think the temple is also in one of the Vader comics. I remember it very vividly, but I'm not certain. But what I was going to say, we're talking about Sith temples and stuff. What I was going to ask is, I was like, with the different lineages of the Sith, we get introduced to Exegol in The Rise of Skywalker. But like for a long time, and even in Clone Wars, the Sith homeworld was Korriban or Moraband, depending on whatever interpretation you're going with. And then we get Rise of Skywalker, and they're like, well, here's the really ancient Sith homeworld. And it's like, it always strikes me as, I'm like, what if one of those is a... What if like maybe Korriban was like the like at some point early in the Sith, they were like, we were on Exegol, and they were doing their own thing. Like, and then this. I agree, Retney. I agree. I like Exegol, but I think
never took it, unless I'm remembering incorrectly. I never took it that Exegol was meant to be a replacement for that. I thought it was just like where
it's not. It's just another one, which I found interesting.
Okay,
it's just an also.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, there's Korriban, but there's also Exegol. There's 2 Sith. But I mean, I know the Jedi have that because there's like.
That's a good point. Why wasn't it just Korriban or something? I never really gave that any consideration.
JJ fears anything that he didn't make.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Not gonna say anything.
Maybe JJ is Palpatine. Maybe he must seize control.
It's an interesting topic because I like the idea that there's a bunch of different like wells of power throughout the galaxy because the galaxy is so vast. You know, we've got Korriban, which is in canon considered Moraban for some reason. We have Exegol, Peridia, technically with the Temple of Kujet. We have Dathomir, and even in legends like Dagobah itself meant to be a well of dark side power. Yeah. So
Yavin 4 in legends as well.
Yavin 4. The Sith were everywhere, man. No wonder Bane had to shave it down.
Talking about this stuff, it reminded me of another thing in these first 3 chapters. Not to circle us back a little bit, was Plagueis sensing Palpatine?
That was a quote that I had where he's sensing that, he's like, is that the fleeting moments of Tenebrus's force energy, or he's like, but I sense something out there that is like equally as powerful as me, and I don't know what it is. Yeah, that's what I'm. Is it Palpatine?
You can't answer because you guys have read the book.
Yeah,
I had a thought that what if it's basically like the Force's way of directing the new master to their apprentice, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I mean, yeah, like you can go
Sith.
out and search for a new apprentice, but it's almost like a wayfinder, I guess.
Oh, yeah, no, I was exactly. Oh no.
What's he doing?
Yeah, I'll pull up the quote here. He says, when he reached out with the Force, or it says, and yet, ... when he reached out with the Force, he could detect the presence of something or some being of near equal power. Was it the dark side itself or merely a vestige of his uncertainty? He had read the legend, blah, 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 whatever. So
this idea of personifying the dark side is very fascinating to me because I've recently, I don't know, I've been kind of moved into this other camp where like the dark side is sort of it's a reaction, where there's not so much a light side and the dark side. There's the Force and then there's the dark side. Have you guys heard this argument?
Yep.
I heard it from Thor Skywalker. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his channel. He's pretty cool. Makes some pretty good videos. He has an argument basically that there's not light side and dark side. There is the Force, and the light side is just how it's supposed to normally function. And then the dark side is a corruption of that. And so the light side is a response to the dark side, essentially.
The balance and then lack of balance is more of what people think of as the light side and the dark side. Where balance is both, but unbalance is twisting on either one of only being light or only being dark.
Exactly. Hey, Anonymous, how's it going?
Uh-oh, they're live.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
It's very fascinating because this idea that balance is not light and dark, because even with Ahsoka coming out, with Anakin, is he balanced because he's using light and dark? There's a lot of questions about that, but I think it's also interesting to think, is balance just the being in the light side, and then the dark side is a corruption of that? So the reason I bring it up is because this book on several occasions sort of personifies the dark side as an entity. Oh, it even gives it dialogue. It speaks to Plagueis. And I find that very fascinating because it's like, what is that? Because the will of the Force, as far as we know, even in canon, the wills, is there a dark side version of that? That just doesn't make sense to me that there would be something like that. And I guess it almost does sort of make sense that there is an echo of these past Sith. That's how I would describe it. Like, it's almost like they've left their what what's left of their fleeting spirits has sort of left an impression on the dark side overall, and it's sort of their voices, sort of.
Yeah. No, I think it's like an as above, so below situation. At the very least,
Okay.
you know, depicted in the book that, you know, there are the Force is kind of unknowable, right? I really like how, you know, the Force works in mysterious ways.
I have a
And
quote.
in those
I have a quote to address that for you, Cole. Hang on to your thought. Ignore what I'm saying. I don't want you to lose your spot here.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, it's okay. Please, by all means.
I have to back up your point. I'm your essay writer here.
Thank you. Thank you,
The very first thing that I highlighted in the book is a reminder to all. I don't know the context, but what's going on? What's happening?
Nothing. That was just very funny the way that you did that. I love it.
I'm so sorry. No, it just said a reminder to all sentient beings that some secrets could never be unlocked. Anyway,
where does it say? Where does it say that?
I'll pull up the context of it real quick. It was on. Well, I'm on my Kindle because it's easier to highlight stuff. It's the context. It says, surprise was the element absent from any periodic table, a keystone element, a missing ingredient, the means by which the Force amused itself. A reminder to all sentient beings that some secrets could never be unlocked.
Yeah, it's just kind of I don't know. I really love the idea that the Force is like it's almost just this grand game. It will rise and it will fall. Things will happen and we don't have an interpretation of it. It's kind of like how both sides, at the very least, Tenebris and Plagueis, seem to adhere to this ideology that the Jedi do as well, where it's just the will of the Force. And I don't know. I like that. I also just really like that the idea that there are two opposing forces. But at the same time, it has been alluded to several times that the dark side or Bogan is just a corruption of the natural order. But you know, you could think about the Mortis gods and put all of that into question. You know, we don't know, and I really like that we don't know. I don't. Yeah.
That's a great point, Cole. Is that mystery is great. Some things are great left to mystery, and we should have that.
Good that we don't know.
I don't want all the
everything.
answers. Don't take away the fun.
That I remember when Ahsoka was coming out, and I think that quote of like some secrets can never be unlocked. That's a good thing. That adds to the intrigue. Because to be honest, sometimes I don't want to know like every little minute thing because it kind of just makes things not fun. But I remember when Ahsoka was coming out, I had a friend who I've mentioned many times in our group chat and things. He was like, "Yeah, I'm annoyed that in the episode that Anakin was in, that they didn't explain everything about the world between worlds or whatever." Right, and I was like, "That wasn't the point."
I like that they didn't.
Yeah, because I was like, you get everything you need to know in Rebels. If they want to drop little tidbits, but to be honest, I'm like, you want more information about it? Like I was like, that's not how the Force works. Like, you know, it's not supposed to be 100% knowable.
I don't understand. I've never understood arguments like that with people who watch movies or shows who want literally everything explained to you. It's like,
yeah,
you not want your own interpretation. You don't want your own way to, like, talking about that episode specifically. We've talked about it many times, like how cool it was to walk away from that, not knowing what it meant at first, and really having something to chew on. That's so fun. I don't like to watch something and then be like, okay, that was it.
I think immediately
think about now.
I think immediately, like, sorry, I'm not trying to get on an Ahsoka tangent or whatever, but like, I think immediately people take that episode and I should also give some context. Like, we're going to talk about other projects, so it's okay if we talk about Rise of Skywalker 80 billion times in this episode.
It's all Star Wars, okay?
Yeah, it is. It's
all money, Alex.
It's their Star Wars, and it's all right.
Yeah. What was I saying? I don't even remember anymore.
Something about the Rise of Skywalker.
Ahsoka. That's
yes.
Right.
Yeah, the people were like,
Anakin?
as soon as Anakin shows up and they're like, oh man, that's all this episode is. It's just an Anakin cameo or whatever. And it's like, you know, they're like, there was a video that you sent to us, Will, and he talks about that scene specifically, and it was one of the things that I disagreed with, or it was just like and it was funny, it made me laugh, but you know, constant to the episode, they're like like live or die, like, no, it's like time to die, I choose to live. And it's like when you take
Incorrect.
in that context of just them saying live or die, it sounds really rudimentary, but it's like, no, there is much more to that. Like that is, there are a lot of things in Ahsoka that they definitely are like telling you to be like, hey, you didn't watch Rebels, that's okay, we're going to tell you everything that's going on. And I know that's not really how stories should go, about, showing, not telling is very important. But like in that episode, I feel like that episode does a really good job of showing and not telling.
Yep.
So anyway, that is not Plagueis, but that is definitely ties back into that thing of like, not everything needs to be explained. It's cool when it happens and when it's pertinent to the story or a character arc. And in this instance with Plagueis, like they're explaining a lot about the Force, or at least the way that Plagueis views the Force, about being the dark side is almost a being. And of course, this was written before the time of the Mortis gods, but now when you tie that into the Mortis gods of like, well, the sun technically is the dark side, and he is the being of the dark side. Is that an allegory? We don't know, but it's cool to think about, to connect these things of like, they have so much just praise and reverence for the dark side, and it's like, this is the sun, But
I just thinking about that, like it's like, this sounds so cool when you read the book, and it's like that doofus is talking to him, just the sun. I think that's it's just like, oh, he's the cool thing out there that's telling him to do all these things. I'm just like,
if I can bring something up, I'm going to share my screen. There's that clip that of Sam Witwer that I think is my favorite, of him explaining the why inconsistencies in Star Wars are good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull it up because this is the best explanation of this that
it's so good.
I can think of. Also, you guys should subscribe to Diamondfigs.
It's good if the stories
Link down in the description.
Tony and I once had this argument.
Can you guys hear that?
Educated me greatly.
Yeah.
Because I was all concerned. There was this thing I was recording as Darth Maul for this audiobook, and it wasn't, strictly speaking, consistent with something that we did in Clone Wars. Right. And I said, Dave, what should I do? Should I tell them to change the line? Should I blah, blah? What do you think? And how do I solve this problem? And he just said, Sam, it's good if the stories are different. Oh, what do you mean? It has to be consistent. He's like, no, it doesn't. These are all tall tales, and they all of the tellings. It's great if it's a little bit different. That's reason to go seek that out, to get a different perspective on the same story. This campfire that night that was told that story, this happened, and Ahsoka's lightsaber was blue. But over here, you heard the same story, and Ahsoka's lightsaber was green, and that's good. And when I thought about what he said, I'm like, he's right, and that's always been the way it was with George.
It's funny,
man. That's exactly what I was saying. It's tall tales.
It's so funny because the Darth Maul Shadowhunter is the audiobook that he's talking about in that clip. And there was moments where I was listening to it and I was like, oh, this is really good. Oh, but like that doesn't really line up. And it's Legends, I know, but it doesn't totally line up. Like, because they'll say like a line of like, oh, he's from Iridonia, right? In Canon, we know he's from Dathomir. And it's like, obviously that was just because that was a different time and it's not like they changed Maul's story. But like, there's still so many cool things in that book that it just because there's one line that says, "Oh, he's from Iridonia," trash, like throw it away. Like that's what makes reading these legend stories really cool, because there's still so much you can take from it and put it into the modern context of story. It's just layering stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not to. We just talked about the 2003 Clone Wars, and it's the same thing where it's like you have these two stories, and it's like. It's the same thing, but different, and experiencing that story again, it was exactly what we're talking about. It's like, it gives you a whole new appreciation for it. I think that these stories can all exist simultaneously, and it's okay. And
you shouldn't have to pick one over the other.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I've been kind of doing some soul searching for myself, about being a stickler for canon, because I was that guy where I was like, oh, it says Maul's from this planet? In the garbage. I'm not reading this. That's nonsense, like
not in your head, Canon.
Exactly. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be like that. And so I'm trying to not be like that. And honestly, it's this guy's helping me with that, because he appreciates more EU stuff than I do.
It's your fault, Seth.
Because my big EU story was always
Force Unleashed.
Force
Force
Unleashed.
Unleashed,
So,
baby. Yep.
There's a lot of that stuff that's not canon, but I don't care because it's awesome.
Well, even in the opening gag of your episode today, by the way, go listen to that. I'm going to later, so you should. But them talking about Gendy's, like, the opening thing is just like, oh, what's no 08 Clone Wars or whatever, and it's like, yeah, there's some maybe minor contradictions in there of, like, Mace Windu. Well, that's volume 2. I won't get to that. But sorry, I want to read Retney's thing. I get distracted. I get ADHD.
Mace Windu's depiction in Gendy's Clone Wars is my favorite depiction of Mace Windu of all
It's the
time.
only time I like him.
That's exactly the way I feel when he's flying on the vulture droid, slicing droids at, like, that's the coolest Mace Windu depiction across all of Star Wars. And the only other depiction of Mace Windu that I think is very cool, where I'm not like, I want to punch this guy in the face, is the first season of Tales of the Jedi, where I'm he's kind of right at certain points. But that's enough Mace Windu talk. Mace Windu sucks.
But, like,
It does suck. Thank you.
And I haven't.
Damn.
I'm assuming Seth likes Mace Windu because Qui-Gon's cool, but
No, man.
if you had to pick one,
Mace or Qui-Gon?
Mace
Go.
or Qui-Gon.
I don't know if I know enough about Mace Windu.
Oh, here we go.
oh, and he
You know
still
what?
would
Just-
pick
Just to
Qui-Gon.
add fuel to this fire. I know this is a tangent, but just to add fuel to this. Last week, I asked him who's better, Jackson the Rabbit or Qui-Gon Jinn, and he said, "I don't know enough about Jackson the Rabbit."
At this
I
point,
don't
it's
think he was
That's
kidding.
so funny.
dude. Listen, it's the running joke at this point now.
It is the running joke.
But,
at
like,
this point.
you also don't like Han Solo, Connor. So
I don't like. Well, I mean,
You don't like Han?
no,
No, Mamma
not
Mia.
really. You want to know why though?
Sure.
Because I'm not a Harrison Ford fan.
No way, dude.
No.
I will say though,
He left.
he just left.
That mad.
I will say though, it's paradoxical because you
man.
know what my favorite film of all time is? It's not a Star Wars
Don't-
movie.
Blade
Is
Runner.
it Indiana Jones?
Blade
Don't
Runner?
say Indiana
Indiana
Jones.
Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
But you don't.
How
like
can you
Harrison.
like Indiana Jones and not like Harrison Ford?
People are often contradictory. So-
And that's our show,
Wow.
folks.
Oh,
I know,
man.
I know it's a hot take.
Oh wow, Retney.
Overrated.
Yes.
What?
Wow.
Yes. He is
Oh, Han
overrated.
Solo.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought
I
you
was
said
playing
Harrison.
it up a little
Han
bit.
Solo. Wow.
I'm playing it up a little bit. I don't hate Harrison Ford. I think he's fine. I really love Indiana Jones, but I don't know. Han Solo is just
He sucks, and then he learns to love his friends. It's like that,
I'm not saying
and then
he's
he
a bad
stops
character.
sucking.
I'm not.
You've
Connor's favorite movie is The Force Awakens, just for
Hey,
when Han
we all
Solo
have
gets
got
shot
our
in
Star
half
Wars
on that
hot
bridge.
takes, okay? We've all got them. Seth
Man.
hates Qui-Gon and
I don't
Han.
hate him.
I-
Like
Seth really
Yeah.
cannot stand Qui-Gon Jinn. You heard it first, folks.
I think he's just fine.
And I think
Han-
Han Solo is just
Mid.
fine.
Yeah, get off the plane.
Han's arc is like the epitome
Wait, all right,
of
okay.
imposter
Show of
syndrome.
hands then. Who's better, Han or Qui-Gon?
Qui-Gon.
Which hand do I
Rick
put up
Deckard
for
is-
Han
Qui-Gon?
Solo.
I love Rick Deckard. He's not. It's Han Solo clears Rick.
Really? Am
Deckard.
I the only one that's gonna
Nope.
pick Han
A
Solo?
Qui-Gon.
over
I
Qui-Gon.
listen.
Really?
Actually, okay. In my
That's
top
wild to
five,
me.
I love
I
it.
know
That is
Han Solo.
wild to me.
Han Solo is above Qui-Gon for me. I had to think about it, but he is.
Thank
you.
Ooh.
Like, because here's the like you were talking about your like in. Sorry, and I know we're going off of like the Plagueis stuff, guys. So maybe
Oh, it's
we'll-
too late.
but-
It's off the rails.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we're
off the
done.
rails.
That's it.
Yeah.
Kanan Jarrus Retney, thank you very much.
Oh,
Anyway.
got him with that one.
Sorry, buddy.
Who's your
Um,
okay? Fine. Just who you all have to have a character that everybody loves that you guys don't like or you think is overrated.
Grogu.
Grogu is
Okay.
He hasn't done
Not-
anything.
I cannot stand that little baby on your shirt, Seth. I want him to get punted into the volcanoes of Mustafar.
I just can't wait till Chris Pratt's voicing him.
Dude,
You're gonna have
that
to deal with it.
I was cracking up when you guys said that, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah, he's gonna.
Okay, Tony, you gotta hear
And we're off the rails now.
Hey, I'm
Speaking with-
Grogu.
Chris Pratt adds another voiceover
Oh,
Infinity
God.
Stone to his glove because he's voicing what's his Shadow in the
No,
Sonic
he's
movie?
not.
Yep, I
That's
saw it on
not
Twitter
true.
today. He's voicing it.
Yeah.
He adds it.
There's
There's
no
an
way.
inevitable, and he adds a stone, dude. Voiceover.
There's no way. I have to look that up now.
He's not.
Tony, who's yours? Who's your
Pretty sure I saw it on
overrated
Deadline.
character?
Who's my what?
Overrated character. You got to have one.
I don't know, man. I'd have to think.
So we're saying a character that we like, or like a character that everybody likes that we don't like.
Or just that
Okay,
you think
fair.
is overrated. Oh, we'll come back to you, Tony. How about you,
Oh,
Cole?
you wanna hear
come,
my-
come back.
no,
don't go to
I'm
me.
I'm gonna
I
I'm gonna
know.
stoke the fire here, guys.
Okay, hit me.
Boba Fett, overrated.
Oh, I love.
I
Really
love
fair.
Boba, but in canon, he's just overrated. The original trilogy, he does nothing except stand there, and then in Book of Boba Fett, they didn't massacre his character arc, but they just did a very poor job with it. The best he is in is his cameo in Jedi Survivor. That is peak.
I think his peak moment is in Mando season 2. To be honest with you.
Wholeheartedly
That's like-
Never mind,
wholeheartedly
dude. When
agree.
he shoot, okay, that was like, I don't know what happened, what went wrong. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I think
It's a whole different story. How about you,
Yeah.
Cole? Hit it.
Dude,
Hit me.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, there aren't really a lot of characters that I just vehemently dislike.
No, it's not that you dislike. It's just
yeah.
like people are like, "Man, this is the guy," and you're like, "I mean, I don't know. He's all right."
Overrated.
Maybe-
Well, actually, I do have an answer. Grayson's not gonna like it. I
Do it.
I'm not crazy about Kylo Ren. I'm
oh,
just
that's
not.
fine. That's fine. I don't.
Uh,
I thought you were gonna say
hit me.
Kanan, and I was literally going to choke you out. Like I
I thought that's where he was
I
going
told
too.
you
I was
I-
like, "Oh man, here we go."
No, like
No,
No,
like,
the
like,
end of
Grayson-
Mortis FM in real
Grayson
time.
loves Kylo Ren, and like anytime I hear people talk about Kylo Ren, they're like, "Oh my god, Kylo Ren!" I'm like, "Okay, he's
See,
fine."
Kanan was good.
I don't know, man.
I believe Cad Bane is overrated.
Cad Bane's pretty cool.
Retney,
I don't have any
Hey,
qualms with him.
I like that guy.
Yeah, Seth also doesn't like Cad Bane.
I think Cad Bane is the most underrated character in Star Wars. Famously, there's
really?
I think
Ooh.
Cad Bane is so cool, and I would love to see more with him. I
I
think
love Cad Bane
So
too.
sick.
he is such a Star Wars character.
Yes,
He went
is.
toe to
Thank
toe
you.
with so many Jedi, like a
He-
lot, and
he
he won a
is-
bunch of times.
He is the bounty hunter that he's like the cowboy in black. He's the guy in
Yep.
your westerns that wears the giant hat, and he's like, yeah, that's literally who he is.
Yeah,
And there was a comment on Beyond the Dune Sea's newest episode where a guy was like, I like Cad Bane better than Dirge, and I was like, something
Correct.
like that, and
Well,
I
do
was
you know
like,
why he said that?
I have not gotten to know.
Well, a little spoiler alert.
Okay,
So when they were adapting, or when they were making the 2008 Clone Wars, Filoni was starting to pull characters from Gindis, and they were going to bring Dirge in, but they kept
know.
messing with the character,
No.
and ultimately he was thrown away in favor of Cad Bane.
That's
Huh.
so cool.
I
Good.
did know that. To me, it's like Cad Bane and Dirge are like apples and oranges. Where what I said in response to that is, I was like, Cad Bane is the evil cowboy, whereas Dirge is just like the menacing tank. Like he is just like to throw everything at him. He is not getting stopped. But
Well, Filoni,
Asajj is
like,
underrated.
they
I love
ultimately
Asajj.
didn't have the budget to do like the tentacles and stuff. And they
Yeah.
said they'd have to change the character so much that they would just be taking his name essentially, and he didn't feel
Yep.
like that was fair for the fans.
yeah,
And then it was George's idea to do Cad, because I don't remember who did the sketch, but they did like a sketch of a cowboy. And then I don't remember who had the idea to make him a Duros, but it kind of evolved from there. And they're like, all right,
Cad
Dirge,
Bane-
get out of here. Cad Bane.
Cad Bane is the epitome of like how Star Wars has like the samurai side of things. Cad Bane is the Western side of things, which is
Yeah.
like
You
the
listen to this
yeah.
man.
Yeah,
which is like the
You
coolest
enjoying
part
yourself?
of that.
I am.
I'm happy that.
Well,
you
'cause that-
found
yeah,
it.
that was the whole thing, right? Is like Star Wars is like there's Kurosawa, but then there's also your Flash Gordon,
The space
know?
Western side of things.
Yeah,
and Cad
yeah.
Bane is like the epitome of that, which is
All right,
so
guys.
good.
Man. Yep.
I just
Man.
gotta get.
Okay,
I just
Tony,
have
coming back to
this
you.
out here.
Will,
I
you
hold
got
on.
a new member. Shout out to Anonymous for becoming a channel member for Will. Let's go.
Zoinks, dude. Thank you.
So I was gonna say overrated, maybe Admiral Akbar. I really don't. I mean, he's cool, but like, Yeah.
Man, coming in from the top rope to just like slam down Admiral Akbar.
If I had to pick someone, the pressure's on to pick someone. I guess him. I mean, he's cool, but
make a
I
difference.
Yeah.
I'm not losing sleep over Admiral Akbar.
I had to pick an overrated character. I'd pick Nice Snoodles.
All right, guys. All right, guys. Hold on.
Yeah.
Underrated character now.
Underrated.
Underrated.
We're really
character
going
now.
off the rails. Okay.
Because no,
I like this
because
one.
I have
Asajj.
to come in with this.
Asajj
I have to
is
come
good.
up with this.
Asajj, man. I love me some
Grievous is
Asajj
underrated. Grievous is underrated.
In Gindies.
Grievous is underrated. He doesn't get enough love. Dave treats him like
Underrated.
trash, like the villain of the week that loses all the time. Gendy's,
Does he?
Say it.
you
Say
should
it.
see him. No, say it. I don't
Well,
want to.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, I guess I gotta say Dirge.
Oh,
'cause
this
apparently
is
he's
good
underrated.
right here.
I love Dirge.
Dirge is underrated.
You know,
He is.
Retney, I would agree, but I would just say the show is the most overrated. Hot take. I like the show, but it's like
I don't-
dang.
I don't
Connor,
think
I knew I
know.
liked you. Connor for president 2024. I love your. This is the. I will support this man. Stand on that. Let's go, Connor for president 2024, baby. I need this.
We said this before. I don't get with Andor people how, because I think the show is good, but I don't get the people who love that show. They use their love for that show to just beat down everybody.
Correct.
else.
That's the problem with
I'm
fans
like-
altogether, though. Is people that like their Star Wars, they think that for some reason that makes other people's Star Wars not
Yeah.
as good.
Yes, but
And I
don't-
love
not just
Andor,
them. That's
but I
all.
will
Yeah,
never.
but I've never seen a fan of Ahsoka come out there and be like, Ahsoka is so good that, man, the original trilogy sucks. The prequel trilogy
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly.
So does I'm not going to hear that. I mean, yeah, you're going to have pockets of that, but I mean, it's like everybody who says Andor is the top. They're like,
I
coming
will-
out swinging.
Retney,
I'm like,
I
don't get it,
will
man. They're both-
say, try not to let people's try not to let people's views of pushing Andor down on you affect your own personal views of the show negatively.
Dude, I know, and that's tough.
Yeah,
I-
Retney.
Yeah,
that is true, Cole. I'll say that. Because I do like the show. I mean,
yeah.
we got a lot of heat because I'm like, it's C tier to me. I mean, it's fine. I think it's a great show.
Correct.
Here's my quote I always say all the
That's
time.
pretty
with
high,
Andor.
C tier.
It's A
Dang.
tier.
I always
Come
say
on.
Andor feels like an HBO show cosplaying a Star Wars.
100%. Yep.
Like that's
Yep.
like it's great. It's great, and it proved
Looks
something
good.
to me that the that's not the right word. The campy dialogue is part of the DNA of Star Wars, and we take it away, it doesn't feel like it anymore. I don't know.
Yep.
Yo,
I
this
can
is my
see
man
that.
right here. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
What
Okay,
were we
this
talking
is
about Plagueis? What happened to that?
That's a
Kenobi-
wild take.
I know.
Definitely not better than Andor, but that's
True.
okay.
We kind of
Kenobi-
really got off the rails,
Right.
guys.
Right on.
Kenobi was kind of
Okay.
a slip and a fall, brother. They did my favorite character dirty.
Oh, they didn't do him dirty. They just did the show dirty.
They did my favorite character show dirty.
Not a-
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
He,
be
as a
different in 4
character,
hours.
he's good in that. But
Can I be your
Anyway-
running mate?
Yeah, I don't know. You
It's
guys
good to have
you got
different
some hot
perspectives.
takes.
Yeah, if you guys want to run for
Gonna get that
president and vice
votes.
president, it's good because you guys have
Yeah.
different
Yeah,
perspectives.
because you take the other side.
I got
That's
the other
true. That's
side. and
true.
We'll get them
That's
both.
true.
That's the-
Yeah, we'll get them from all angles.
exactly.
But we should. Okay, let's circle
I agree.
back. We got way.
Vegas
off.
is good though.
Plagueis
Yeah,
is
well,
cool. Talk about
yeah.
Yeah.
talk
Okay.
about an underrated character.
How about this? I feel like we've gone over
yeah?
most of
Good
it.
chapter.
So
Yeah. We
overall,
Except for the Winnebago, or what is it called?
It's called a wabagong. It's a type of shark.
No. The
no, it's I thought it was the woebegone. Like
Yeah, but
Be
like,
gone,
Woebegone,
whoa!
Thank you.
The
Yeah.
audiobook I was listening to called the wabagong.
That's what it was. Sorry.
what do we think? 3 chapters in, what do we think overall?
I will- oh, you want to know what I think?
What?
Yeah.
Give me a second there,
I
guys.
would love to
I
know.
want more.
why'd you say it so ominously?
I know I shouldn't.
Yes.
Yes,
Please.
I'm with Anakin.
Dude, my StreamYard is lagging so badly.
Just
Oh,
too
man.
much heat here. That's
Gross.
what's happening.
It's getting spicy.
It knows you like Andor.
No, I'm looking forward to more. What a cliffhanger that I know it's not really a cliffhanger because you're supposed to keep reading, and we said
Yeah,
arbitrary
yeah.
goal for ourselves, but yeah, I'm really interested in
more.
really interested in seeing more about. I was going to say like specifically about the character of where Plagueis is going, because I'm intrigued by he's not your typical Sith that we see in the movies. I mean, we've hammered that point home as we've been talking here. Yeah, just excited to keep reading. Oh man, Tony,
what's happening over there?
Get a room, Tony.
Gross.
Goodness.
Jealous?
Gosh.
How many more chapters are we going to read next?
Oh, that's a great question. How many chapters are there?
Grayson, you're mute. You got to let us know, but not muted.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Sorry, my StreamYard. I did not click mute. My StreamYard is bugging out right now. You presented Shin, and I only just now heard the Anakin thing, the quote that you played. So I don't know what's going on. But I mean, the estimate. So the book is around 40 chapters. We've covered the first 3, so it leaves us around
30 chapters.
30 chapters.
Oh, sorry. I don't know
Grayson,
why.
Read once, would you?
I'm sorry. There's no table of contents. But
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, let's aim for like the next 15 chapters because we have a full month.
That's what I was feeling.
But if we get beyond it, that would be good. If anybody is reading along, like, we will keep you up to date of like, we're going to try to stay in communication of like, it's the holidays, it's coming up, it's going to be busier. So if we don't get a chance to read, I'm not the fastest reader, I won't lie. So we will make an announcement of like, what we get up to or whatever.
Hey, Will's already started.
The this is me figuring out what a book is for the first time. Chapter 16 kind of puts you like right at the center of the book. So if you read through chapter 15, if everybody's got the time for that for the next month, I think that's a good place.
That should work.
I think that's a great idea. That puts us at about, I mean, this is kind of
Halfway.
our little prologue here and, 2 streams basically to do the book. Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And hey, if you don't have it, ask for Santa to leave this under your tree.
What?
Oh, yeah. I think I left the link for it down in the description too.
And that just struck a chord with you, huh?
Well, I said that to you like 2 days ago, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that to me." And I'm just now you are using it for the world.
It's not going to be
imagining some kid sitting on Mall Santa's lap. He's like, "What would you like? Can I get the Darth Plagueis novel?" What?
The book from 2012.
Santa, I've never heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. And that's when Santa turns over. Actually, them sitting like that, like Anakin and Sidious do is like sitting and getting the kid. Have you like an elf? You smell like beef and cheese. He's like looking at the kid and he's like, "Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" And he's like, "I just wanted a fire truck."
We got our next intro. We got to do.
I want to do it.
Oh man. Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Well, all
Good
right.
stuff. Good stuff, guys.
Good
Good
stuff.
stuff all around.
It was
My
fun.
my thing is lagging so bad, so you guys might have to do the outro for this because I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Cole, it defers to you then. That's how it
yes.
works. Yeah, after
Okay,
Tenebris dies, it goes to you, Plagueis.
Right. Well, rule of two's gone. My order will reign for 2,000 years. So Grayson's dead. I killed him. Now I'm the master. So I just thought that I'd let everybody know we're going to be continue reading Darth Plagueis. We're going to be reading up to chapter 16. Our next stream will be at the end of the month. Dates pending. And oh, Grayson's alive. So Grayson, it's really oh no, okay, he's dead. So anyway, stay tuned for the stream. Please catch up with us. Chapter 16, Darth Plagueis. Thank you for tuning in to thank you for tuning in to Grayson's death on Tales from the Archives. Very happy to see him go. Hate to watch him leave, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Every
guys.
month we will be sacrificing one of our members until there's only one of us.
Thanks,
Every
guys.
month.
Grayson's dead.
Maybe though.
Only 5 there are. No more, no less.
Be sure to hit that like button, guys. The links to everyone's channel is down in the description. We'll see you guys later.